Your is in there. We're gonna notice if I disappear. See, someone's already.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank you for joining us for NCLUG's Tech Talk update today. Today, we're going to be having an update from NCDOT about Open Roads Designer, kind of a state of where NCDOT is right now, where they hope to be by the end of the year, and then some issues that they've found and how they're working through them. And then at the end of the presentation, hopefully some input from the community will also be helpful, is what Jeff is looking for. So just a few housekeeping items today. Please, if you not already muted, mute yourself so that we don't have to mute everyone and then unmute the speaker. Also, please save any questions you have till the end of the presentation. Right now, I think Jeff is allotting about 20 minutes at the end of the presentation for questions, and we would ask that you hold any and all questions till then. The session is going to be recorded, and it will be on NCLUG's website afterwards, and hopefully a copy of Jeff's presentation will be available then also. And if you do hope to get PDH credits, please go to NCLUG's website right now and register for the event. You'll need to be registered and also logged into the Teams meeting to get credit. At the end of the meeting, Patty will be doing a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card, so please stay till the end. You have to be online to win that. And for right now, I'll turn it over to Jeff Garland with NCDOT. He's included a few more people from NCDOT with us today, and I'll let him introduce them. But Jeff, thanks for being here today, and I'll let you take it from here.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much, everyone. Just getting a few technical buttons on my screen fixed up here. Great, and everyone can see that. Great. So happy to be here. Thank you to NCLUG for this opportunity to speak with everyone, and really thank you everyone for taking time out of your day, and certainly during your lunch hour from 12 to 1 here, to talk with us here at NCDOT. I'll give a little background on myself before we jump into the presentation for those that don't know me. Again, my name is Jeff Garland, and I have rejoined the department as of January of this year. Some background on me: I started with the department in 2005 and served as a public servant with NCDOT through summer of 2013. I was fortunate enough to work in traffic and with Jim Dunlop and others, then in design build, and learn how we use that contracting method to deliver projects for the NCDOT, and then ultimately served as the state value management engineer for several years, running that program statewide to really benefit our taxpayers on how we deliver our projects. Then in the summer of 13, I took an opportunity to work at SAS with the Goodnights and run a national program for delivering some of their government software solutions across the U.S. and ran a large team of technical delivery folks and project managers to really implement that for SAS. I felt a calling to really come back to public service, and this opportunity to return to the department arose, and I took it starting January of this year, and I am honored to serve in this public role again and help the department, just trying to pull from my engineering background and my software background to hopefully drive home this ORD implementation for the state, because I think it's going to benefit us all in the years ahead. So very excited about that. And with that said, thank you again for having me today. To give you a quick overview of what you can expect this afternoon for this lunch presentation, I'll spend about the first 35 minutes speaking to a number of topics, and then at the end, we'll have a number of questions and input, etc. And just as a quick fun note about myself, as we talk through this, I have a very deep Southern twang that I'm fully aware of, and it comes very naturally. My father was Air Force, and we lived in the southern states my whole childhood in Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Alabama, very deep southern states. And I moved to North Carolina at the young age of 12. And when I was looking to move to North Carolina at 12, because my father was stationed here at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in Goldsboro, my first questions to him were, was I going to develop a northern accent by moving to North Carolina that was really north on the map? And he chuckled and he assured me that I would maintain my southern twang throughout my life. And he has been very correct. So I recognize I have a deep southern dialect. So just to kind of joke about myself on that one. And definitely grew up military in the fact that if you can't be on time, be early was another one. I have so many military sayings in my head, but anyway, that's a little bit more background on me. But for today on our presentation, I'm going to go through some background on kind of how we got to where we're at today as a department, some of our current activities around the ORD working group that's our internal folks here in the department, some of our coordination with Bentley, some of our pilot projects that are currently underway, and then really some of those technical implications around what we're doing as far as ORD software readiness, any enhancement needs we're finding, potential design workflow changes necessary for ORD and 3D modeling, impacts of converting projects from SS2, SS4 to ORD, and I'll touch upon workspaces as well. And then, as was noted, going to talk about moving forward, kind of the current plan and how that really affects the industry and our external partners and what you can expect later this year, et cetera. And again, at the end, we'll have, I'll genuinely be looking for questions and input around those, because I really want to understand how we can best move forward collaboratively, because you are such an integral part of our success as a department, how we work with our external partners. At the end, when we have our Q&A, I'll be the facilitator, but I'm going to have several folks from the department assist me in fielding some of the questions that have more subject matter expertise than I in certain areas. And from the DOT, that would be Roger Kluckman, Jason Moore, and Oak Tamavong from our roadway design unit. And from
Jeff,
yes.
We don't see your presentation.
So you don't see the presentation.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
I just see the.
Thank you for that, Oak. Do you guys see
Yeah.
it now? Let's see. You see it now?
Yes.
Okay, there it is.
Yeah.
There we go.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Like I said, I was not aware that was not presenting. It said it was. Weird. Okay, great. So now you can see everything. So the wonderful slides you missed was the opening slide, the overview of the presentation, which I just spoke to, and that puts us on slide 3, which you can see now, which is great. And again, I want to thank Roger, Jason, and Oak from the DOT side. And Oak, thank you for speaking up on that. And then also from the DIT side, we have Ellen Dixon, Kyle Nauman, and Randy Robinson from our CAD support area. And want to thank these 6 individuals and all the folks at the department for really all their work on ORD over the last several years. They've really been carrying the torch and they've been instrumental in our success. So very appreciative of their efforts. So around a little background on how we've got to where we're at is most of you are aware, or if you're not, I'll talk through a couple different items here. Bentley is scheduled to really discontinue their support for the legacy microstation software that DOT is currently using at the first of the year. And as such, DOT has been underway with this statewide technology-focused ORD implementation for a while. The real purpose of what we're doing is we're excited to move the department's CAD operations to ORD. We're looking to have it be a comprehensive, multidisciplinary 3D modeling application that will really help us in advancing the delivery of our transportation projects, all the way from conceptual design all the way through construction. And ORD is replacing MicroStation and GeoPack as Bentley's next generation civil design technology platform. So we're all working towards that same end. And this is a big change. It's a paradigm shift. It's a major transition for the department. And it really is going to require, and has been underway and required, training, testing for just a large number of DOT engineers. And really, we recognize that's for the industry as well, around PEF firms and consultants to work with the department. We anticipate a lot of benefits from this is why we're going through this change. And some of the anticipated benefits that we see for really all state and federal design and construction projects are really, in essence, the utilization of ORD is truly going to lay that groundwork for our future transition to all 3D digital deliveries and workflows. And its advanced model creation will eventually eliminate most of our printed plans, hopefully potentially reducing design errors and construction costs resulting from these design-related changes. We're hoping it's going to support the benefit of digital deliveries, certainly in our construction industry around automated machine grading, e-construction, etc. Additional benefits for our state are around the maintenance side of things for our transportation infrastructure. ORD is expected to have a positive impact on asset management and really help the department more accurately track where our assets in the field. There's a lot of implications around using ORD for that. And really, at the bottom of all of it, ORD is the future civil design platform that Bentley is going to support. And so we need to move to that as a department and as an industry is what our feel is. We have been on this road for a while. Like I said, I believe it was the fall or winter of 2016 when our awareness of ORD started coming about for the department. And we've spent the last several years moving down the road as far as our understanding, our planning, and squarely in the testing and training position now. And we are looking to implement ORD in 2021. That is our plan, and we are working very diligently towards that. And as another military saying my father always told me, you have to have a plan to deviate from. And so we have lots of plans and we'll deviate accordingly as we continue to move down this road. And as a side note, DOT has really been on the forefront of this paradigm shift, working with Bentley since the very beginning. DOT has really focused on trying to make sure that we were involved from day one and have worked to provide really one of the first Connect workspaces and really one of the first departments to offer ORD training using our own developed workspace. I believe Oak, who's on the call as well, I believe he presented through NCLUG in the summer of 2017, I believe was the time frame, at Wake Tech. And of course, this is when we could actually meet in person, different day and age, which already seems so far away along those lines. And I will pause right here. I meant to say this earlier, but I certainly wish everyone and their families the very best in these unprecedented times. I know it has been a very challenging world this year in 2020. So I just want to send my best to you and your families as you work through this. I do see better years ahead, but this has been a challenging one. So I just want to make that well wishes to everyone. Last year in 2019, the department took it upon itself to really drive this program forward, the creation of a position for an ORD implementation manager, and that is the role that I'm serving in as of January of this year. And it's really to help facilitate the work by the entire department through and communicate upwards to NCDOT leadership. And really, as one of the primary roles in my position, is really just to facilitate all the work by all the other units and divisions. They're doing the lion's share of all the pieces because they know best as subject matter experts in their fields what needs to be done, how to make this transition to this new technology. And I'm so very appreciative of all their work. I'm very proud of the NCDOT. These working group members, we lean on them for coordination and communication within each of their divisions, within their units. Like I said, they disseminate the technical information, and we're leaning on them heavily to discuss challenges, barriers, get feedback, etc., so that we can report that progress of how they're developing, what Bentley needs to do to assist us, and how we can truly help them move forward for the sake of the department. DOT has really made this a concerted effort over the last year or two. And as of today, there are approximately 100 ORD working group members throughout the department. And that covers all 14 divisions, all of the pertinent units. And we really stepped up our meeting schedules and work efforts, and the fact that we meet bi-weekly as a large group every 2 weeks now to focus on next steps, challenges, issues around really learning the software. And additionally, myself and members from the CAD support team, we have individual breakout working sessions with each of these divisions and pertinent units on a very regular basis, whether that's weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly in some instances, to really help them test, train, and implement ORD. Because I will say, in this economic state, in this global pandemic we're in, the department has had to fully rely and lean on our internal staff only the last couple months. It's been very challenging, and we are doing the best we can to move the ball forward down the field. And again, very proud of our folks for picking that up and doing the best we can. We do look forward to a better economic state and support from our partners in the months ahead. I'll say that very loud as well. Bentley, as we're under software contract with them, and we have renewed our Bentley coordination and contract for years to come with Bentley, so we are moving forward with ORD. Just want to say that they have been very active this year in our involvement with the ORD implementation. They are meeting with us on a regular basis every 2 weeks as a group, and they maintain a focus on keeping their own spreadsheet, if you will. It's a issue log. We go through this each week, but it's very important for them to understand the things we're finding, because we are really testing it out for them on a really ongoing basis since the beginning. And they're in flow too. They really are trying to figure this out. We are currently utilizing the Connect ORD 2020 Release 2, the R2 version, and the department has successfully deployed this to the majority of all our CAD machines across the department in May of this year. So we are actively and have it available for all our CAD machines across the department. In addition, we're currently reviewing other Bentley Connect products, including Open Bridge Designer, Modeler, Open Rail, Open Ground. We're looking at Concept Station, Context Capture, Navigator, ProjectWise, and Interplot. We're doing a lot of these, and a lot of these are all Connect additions that we're actively pursuing, and we have approximately 200 iPads out in the field using Bentley Navigator as we test that out. I know Photogrammetry is experimenting with drones and Context Capture Connect Edition. So we're actively looking to how the Bentley suite of products can potentially assist the state and which ones will work for us and which ones we may not need. And we're going through that evaluation right now this year. The testing process around ORD and these other products that I just mentioned from Bentley, but predominantly around ORD, we have approximately 20 active pilot projects underway within the department in various stages. And these are all being done by internal staff only at this point, based on economic situation. It's really our chance to cut our teeth and try to learn. Most of these folks are figuring out and utilizing ORD for the first time. So it's kind of testing, training, piloting projects all at the same time. Obviously, this is around the 2020 R2 version of ORD, and the next anticipated Bentley ORD is, which they're going to call Release 3. We expect this later this fall. And just to say it out loud, we plan on testing it when it comes out and looking at it, but not necessarily deploying and utilizing it out of the gate. We need to figure out what it does and does not do, but we are currently working on the 2020 R2 platform. Around the internal pilot projects, just to give a little more information around those 20 that I mentioned, it really does go across nearly all 14 divisions and the majority of our design units. Specifically for B5156 and U5816, we have several units including roadway, hydro, structures, other units such as location and surveys, geotech, that are looking to really see if we can take a project to completion using ORD and all the things that means around plan production, quantities, etc. So we're testing that out right now. Mentioned a few other here, but like I said, this is certainly not an exhaustive list. But our primary focus for doing these pilot projects is really focused around providing hands-on training, practice, utilizing ORD, determining how to replicate in ORD the work currently performed in MicroStation V8i, our SS2, SS4 platform, and determine what internal workflows may need modifications, and really what feedback we need to provide back to Bentley to either fix some of their software or perform enhancements that we as a department deem as necessary for the successful adoption of ORD. In terms of Bentley, again, as I mentioned, they're concurrently developing and further enhancing and designing this software as we go. It is by no means a completed software product. They have come very far, and it is functional, and there's a lot of great pieces to it, but they openly admit that they're fine-tuning several pieces of it, and the department is happy to assist them in pointing those pieces out. As I mentioned, we're doing that currently with the 2020 R2 version, and Bentley maintains the log of all those issues. And as of July last month, there's approximately 60 active items that are being addressed, that have been identified. The department is openly engaging with Bentley on a regular basis, like I mentioned, and we're really trying to categorize those into high, medium, and low priority type categories so that they can focus on the high ones obviously first, because these are potential adoption blockers for the department, and there's less than 10 of those, and they are actively working on those. I do not foresee them being an issue, but we are openly working with Bentley to resolve those. They openly note that it is anticipated that the R3 version this fall will address a number of those items, and we'll test those out at that time. And additionally, our DOT personnel with Bentley technical staff continue to test on that 2020 R2 platform as part of the pilot project work. We're trying to bring them in as needed to assist in our pilot project work for advice, guidance, and suggestions on how to best use the software. And that pulls us into kind of what are the potential design workflow changes that may be necessary. And that's really a big part of what the pilot project work is all about at this point, to really try to identify what workflow changes are needed. And of those 20 that I noted, each unit and division is really working within ORD to determine for their own perspective what those specific discipline workflow changes may need to be. And so that's internal to their own division or unit. But then also, we're trying to understand the interplay between all our units as a collaborative one NCDOT type movement between units such as roadway, structures, hydro, etc. As we work on these ORD projects, it's different. It's not our traditional workflow, some of the kind of linear back and flow fashion. We're looking for where there are areas for improvement, efficiencies, etc. And so we're trying to find those. And ultimately, we really want to plan on developing that guidance for both internal and external partners for how to use and work within these workflows and what changes there may be to CAD standards and other policy changes as this process continues. As far as any impacts on converting projects from SS2, SS4 to ORD, DOT is really working actively to develop that process on how are we going to establish, not only internally, but externally, that guidance around converting those projects. I will say as a general policy, NCDOT plans to really minimize the need for these conversions. And that's based on an economic basis along another number of other reasons why. But essentially, we want to focus on predominantly using ORD for new design projects. For the ones that, for projects that have final design plans already that we have in SS2, SS4, we anticipate that these projects will be let using that software in the near future. Like I said, we don't want to have to go back and redesign and rework that and expend taxpayer dollars unnecessarily if we don't need to. It is anticipated that once the guidelines have been developed on conversions, when, where, which projects, at what point down the design phase, etc., there may be instances where certainly waivers, exceptions will be granted. We want to do the right thing. And like I said, and ultimately that hinges on what is best for our taxpayers and keeping this infrastructure and design work for the state moving forward. And from a technical standpoint, as part of the current ORD pilot projects, we have found when we're pulling in these files that there are certain challenges. We're discovering those and trying to really document what those are so that when they do arise and we are performing these conversions to ORD, we'll be prepared to provide some good guidance around those. But we are actively working on that right now. Additionally, for our success for the department, we have been very actively working on understanding implications around workspaces and what that means to work within the new ORD software platform. As we're working on finalizing that guidance and directions on workspaces, I want to point out a few points of interest for now. But really, it's integral work right now with our CAD support folks and our DOT working group to determine what is the best strategy for moving forward in utilizing both workspaces and work sets as it applies to ORD. We're currently testing a Connect ORD workspace right now that enables flexibility for PEFs and the department where appropriate to work in a single or multiple discipline environment. We're trying to provide that flexibility. And just as a note, this workspace utilizes standard Bentley configurations as a benefit for PEFs and consultants as we move forward with this. It really is designed to be compatible with other state DOT workspaces. So we're actively working on that option now and testing that one out. Additionally, as the DOT certainly plans on continuing to maintain our current customary MicroStation V8i workspace setup that we have for use with our existing SS2, SS4 projects. And DOT will continue certainly to coordinate both internally and with Bentley as we develop and refine our guidelines and direction on utilizing ProjectWise and managed workspaces, because the department is moving forward and will continue to work within ProjectWise as part of our managed workspace for the foreseeable future. So we're learning the ins and outs of that as well concurrently while doing this ORD implementation initiative. And we anticipate a lot of collaboration with the industry and external partners regarding workspaces this fall. Obviously, our external partners and PEFs have been doing the lion's share of design work recently, and you guys are going to be working within ORD and ProjectWise and other positions. So we want to make sure that we have input from you, and we've received some, but as we fine tune how we're going to lay these workspaces out, we want it to be beneficial and flexible for both NCDOT and our external partners. As far as kind of moving forward and what we're looking for, as far as kind of our current quote unquote plan, and as I mentioned from my military background, a plan to deviate from, but we are working very diligently towards this right now. This summer has been very specifically focused on any general ORD training we can get, and that has mostly been in the Bentley Learn site. Obviously, we have very limited funds for any paid training of any type, so we're utilizing the free, quote unquote, options that are available out there that we can get our hands on. Obviously, we're doing a lot of testing and training and pilot project work internally within the department, and really a lot of Bentley software coordination with Bentley to really help them remedy a number of identified issues. And this, of course, has brought up a number of workflow discussions, and that's really what our summer has been about and is currently going on today with all our active work within the department. This fall, over the next September, October, November, the next several months, I foresee continuing this work, and the plan and the hope is to possibly complete a number of these internal ORD pilot projects where possible. And really from that, we're going to try and document our processes, our lessons learned, any noted workflow changes. How can we get this document to benefit not only our internal design folks, but our external vendors as well? And then really to continue any kind of general ORD training, or maybe even discipline-specific training if we can figure out best ways to approach those. And as I mentioned earlier too, we really want to focus on external coordination, PEF coordination, because you guys are so integral in our success as a department. I really want to look towards bringing that more in this fall, and hopefully with improved economic situations, we may be able to bring in funding for a number of different work items, and maybe even a potential soft rollout of ORD on certain projects, which I'll touch more on in a moment. And then really at the end of this year, this winter, whether that's November or December, as a department, we're going to take a very concerted look with logistically where we are at as far as our ORD implementation process. And we'll make any revised target dates, planning, etc. at that time. But our target is definitely still 2021 as far as a target to roll this out and to use ORD rather than MicroStation SS2, SS4 where possible for our new DOT projects. And again, as far as an exact time frame for quote unquote flipping the switch and the cutover, it is still undetermined, but we are hoping and working towards sometime in 2021, and earlier the better for me, but like I said, we're going to make the best decisions as a department, but we are actively working towards that right now. Going to the training, that has been forefront of a lot of our minds here the last several months as we try to figure out how to best use ORD. Obviously, in this current pandemic we're in, the live classroom sessions are all but non-existent, and I don't know the status of when those will resume at some point. So really the department has been focused on virtual training, any kind of webinars, video training modules, and we're trying to look at any kind of written tutorials, documents that we can find, in third-party training options such as Bentley and other Bentley Learn and other sites, as we can get those as well. I know it's been a challenge for everyone, but that is what we have at hand, and it's working pretty well. And we are trial by fire, just trying, the more you can get into it and cut your teeth with ORD, we're learning the ins and outs of the new technology. As far as a training plan for our internal folks and also our external partners, as I mentioned, at this point, we're still mostly just general training, and we'll figure out the focus training moving forward. What I would say for our external partners and our PEFs is I would encourage you to explore the capabilities of Bentley Learn. It's out there, it's available, and obviously we are trying to formalize our DOT use of Bentley ORD products as much as quote unquote out of the box as possible. We're trying to minimize and limit any customizations, etc., so that as Bentley continues to refine and develop their ORD software, we're staged to incorporate and implement those new updates and changes as readily as possible and not have to adjust too much on customizations. So as far as coordination with our external partners and working with you, we look forward to a lot more of that, obviously, in the months and years ahead, as we're all in this together to collaboratively help the citizens of North Carolina with our infrastructure design. As our groups internally within our ORD working group and the rest of the department actively conclude and finish up a lot of this initial testing, training, piloting of our ORD software, our plan is to really try to figure out the most efficient, multi-prong approach that we can to coordinate with our external partners. And as part of our upcoming Q&A here in just a minute, I'm really authentically looking for questions, concerns, inputs from your vantage point. Having been both on the public and private side of the industry, I understand the different vantage points, and so I try to put myself in your shoes from the external industry as much as possible. And I know there's a number of questions, and we want you to be successful as much as possible so that we can be successful as much as possible as well. So we want to share in that journey. But so if you have any thoughts, ideas for the department, I welcome that input, and we'll talk more about that in a second. I did list a website up here at the top, and I would note that this is where we plan to share a lot of our information. Just to click on it for a moment, it is updated with currently for this month in August, and it carries some information now. It will contain a lot more in the months ahead as far as different kind of training options, different kind of potential soft rollout, FAQs, other type pieces. And there's an email address at the bottom, and this is where we're steering a lot of the questions, and I'll bring that up again. And I do believe that NCLUG is going to share this slideshow with everyone afterwards, so you should have it there as well. One of the last slides before we go into the Q&A here in a minute is just a little bit more about that potential soft rollout for firms to help us with this ORD implementation. It will be heavily vetted by specific NCDOT project managers as appropriate. We are hoping and anticipating there will be some options for this fall and winter based on certain economic statuses, etc. It will be completely voluntary, but I'm thinking this will be on smaller, maybe like bridge projects, either rehabs or replacement. I'm not sure where exactly those projects will lie, but they will be smaller in nature, I would think, from the beginning. But again, as we're made aware of that, we'll use our typical channels to put that information out there, and we'll try to raise awareness as that becomes available. And with that said, my father would be proud. We are right at 12:40. Actually, just clicked at 12:41. So this concludes my formal presentation on where the department is at as far as our ORD implementation initiative. And at the top here, you'll see again the email address that we're utilizing for sending that. This will go to a couple of folks in the department, and I will certainly be on there and try to make sure that it gets to the appropriate parties to help find and address those questions around any ones you may have. But at this point, I'd love to open it up for input, questions, feedback, and I believe the folks from NCLUG are going to help facilitate getting the questions verbalized into this chat, or I'm not sure the chat, I'm just looking at the screen, but to get those out there. And then I will certainly bring in the folks from the panel that I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation as well. But I would like to pause for just a moment before we go in the Q&A to genuinely thank everyone again for your time this afternoon and for all that you're doing for the citizens of North Carolina. I am genuinely vested in being a public servant for this state, and I'm excited for anything we can do to help each other out, especially in this day and age. I'm looking to make at least a 15-year pull within the department to round out my career, and I would welcome your help over the next decade or so because we all need to get there together. And I'll leave it at that. But with that, I'll turn over to the folks with NCLUG to help spearhead any questions this way, and I welcome your input. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeff. Just to let everybody know, the way we're going to do this is if you do have a question, go ahead and use the raise your hand button, and then I'll call on people as they have a question. We would like to limit it to one question to start out with, just so that we give everybody, or as many people as we can, an option to ask a question. And if we aren't able to get to your question in this time period, you can send it to the email address that Jeff shared there, and he should be able to hopefully answer it or find somebody to answer it for you later. So the first question I have is from Shannon Macon. Shannon, so if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, you can ask a question.
Sorry about that. I didn't have a question. I don't know how I hit it.
I can handle that one. Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah.
We got that one.
Sorry about that.
Keep those questions coming all day, Shannon. I got that one.
All right, then I guess, is there anybody else that has a question that they'd like to ask? I don't see anybody else with their hand raised, but if somebody just wants to unmute and ask a question, you can feel free to do that now. If not, I think we have some questions that we had heard before brought up to Jeff. So if nobody has a question now, we can kind of ask some of those. So if anybody does have a question, feel free to unmute yourself now.
Jeff.
Yes.
So I have a question. I know you guys said you are going to implement in the summer of 2021.
This summer, and thank you for the question, by the way, for this current summer 2020, at the beginning of that slide, this is where we're actively doing the pilot project testing, working within pilot projects, just using our internal DOT staff. Our hope and our target as we diligently work through this process over the remaining fall and winter of this year of 2020 is to hopefully implement ORD on as many new projects as we can, starting at some point in 2021. We're going to determine a date, whether that's the spring or the summer of 2021, as it makes most sense for the department, and basically try to let our new design work for using ORD rather than SS2 or SS4 is the target. So we're definitely hoping to implement at some point in time in 2021 coming up next year, and we'll certainly make this available and information about it well before the fact, but that we'll have a target date to cut over and say for projects being designed for new projects that's starting at this date, we'll be anticipating, expecting our PEF firms to use ORD rather than SS2, SS4 type software at that point. Does that help?
Yes. So the project that is not going to be, I'm assuming the one that's the current project, and sometimes the project lasts for a few years back, 4 or 5 years, depending on the project itself. The question I have is Bentley is going to support for the project that's ongoing? I know that they have a cutoff date for the support for end of this year.
Right.
But would there be any exception, like for the project that continues?
That's an excellent question, and that's something we're certainly pursuing right now, because to your point, there are a number of our projects that have quote unquote been shelved for whatever reason. Some of them are let ready or shovel ready, if you will, that they've been designed, 100% designed. They are fully designed in SS2, SS4, but we may not be able to let the contract out. And for ones, so in 2021, 2022, for the next year or two as that goes, we want to make the best decisions as a department. And if they've been designed all the way through and we just have some changes or tweaks or final design pieces of those, we don't want to go back and redesign, convert over, do everything in ORD. We'd like to let those projects and complete them using SS2, SS4. Where that gets challenging is for projects that have been designed today that are there that say we re-engage design work and they're halfway done, they're at the 25% design phase, they're further down the process. At what point do we say, no, we're going to convert and use ORD to finish this project up or not? And then at some point, to your point, Bentley, is that yes, they're going to stop maintenance of their current SS2, SS4, any kind of updates, but they haven't really updated in years. But for specific purposes, like I said, they're going to certainly make it available for the next several years. And based on different licensing mechanisms, et cetera, that may be challenging for some of us and how we work through these pieces. But we do foresee for the next handful of years, there will be a need and a logistical reason to finish up design work using SS2 and SS4 that have been 100% designed. They're well down the path. But at some point down the road, we'll have to convert or whatever remaining shelf projects there are, because SS2, SS4, the legacy MicroStation type software, just won't be available. I mean, I don't know if that's 5 years, 10 years, but I have no idea the exact time frame. But we are working with Bentley to better understand those implications for what those guidelines should be around those type of conversion questions. But that's a great question.
Thank you.
We have a question from Jim Reed. Mr. Reed, feel free to go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Garland. My question is in regards to other types of DOT work units, and, particularly hydro. There's a lot of functionality that had been kind of built in through, basically DOT scripted languages and MDLs and such like that. Do you see, or does the department see that there'll be additional, or there'll be a need for other Bentley Connect products as add-ons to this, particularly in terms of, and they call open flows or whatnot? Or does the department just plan to use what is included in ORD already?
Right. And Jim, that's an excellent question. And we work very closely with the hydraulics unit every week on their figuring out ORD. What was known as SUDA has now being called drainage and utilities component within ORD. And essentially, we're working right now with folks from Bentley on going through a number of challenges and questions we have around that drainage and utilities component within ORD. To be determined on exact guidance on other pieces, but we are not actively looking outside of that at the moment. And that is what we're working with as far as Bentley at this point. There could, I'm not even sure. You'd mentioned open flow. Is that what you just mentioned?
Yeah, I think they call it their open flows products.
Okay.
It might be called something different now, but
okay. Yeah, and Jim, to your point, Bentley, in my opinion, has way too many names, way too many products. They I think there's open everything at this point, just to kind of joke for a minute. But no, I know they're doing the best they can to pull all that together. But at this point, the drainage and utilities component within ORD is what we're actively working on and working within for the hydraulics piece of the ORD pilot project work right now.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
I don't see another question at the moment, but Jeff, I guess like one question we've heard before and something we had talked about was, I guess, what's the initial deliverable that NCDOT will be looking for as we move to ORD? Because I think we've talked about, is the goal just to produce the same deliverable we produce now, or is there something more that DOT will initially be looking for as we move to ORD?
Excellent question. And yeah, and so on the panel, either Jason or Roger, like I said, again, we're actively discussing that in the roadway design unit as far as what we foresee being that. And as we move through the pilot project right now, we're trying to really fine tune what will be those initial deliverables when we do let projects that are requiring ORD for the platform. But Jason, if you don't mind, I might tee you up. Anything to expound upon that as far as what we may be looking for as far as deliverables initially?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yep, so here just fine.
I hit my camera button and it locked up for a second.
Mhm.
It's going to be status quo. We'll be looking for files, plans, and a better model. That's the short version answer to that question. We're going to be looking, and we will have to get some more guidance developed as we go along as to what that ORD 3D model is going to look like. And it's going to grow with time. Right now, I would say our primary focus is getting a good, solid earthwork model. We're going to be working with Central Construction. That's their primary focus, to develop a construction model that they don't have to rejig for construction purposes. So that will be our kind of our new primary focus with ORD right off the bat.
Yep, agreed. Well said, Jason. I certainly concur. And Roger, did you want to expound upon that any from your side, Roger, on anything else?
No, like I said, I think Jason covered most of it. Like I said, our initial deliverables are going to be very similar to what we do deliver right now, PDFs of plans, the digital files. There's not much of a change, but of course we are trying to look towards the future, towards a digital delivery process, but that still could be definitely years out. So in the short term, we're just looking at our current deliverables.
No, thank you for that, Roger. Yeah. Any other questions?
I guess I'll throw in another question we had heard. I guess so. The schedule moving forward, we're talking about beginning of next year. Is that primarily for roadway design, we're assuming? And then what do you anticipate as far as the other units and as far as them moving to open roads?
Yeah, excellent question. Each of the units right now are actively working within trying to better understand from their specific unit standpoint to how to get prepared, how to work towards it. I'm aggressively trying to push everyone towards being ready by the first of the year. But as we get further down that road, and obviously it'll all come out when we're requiring and requesting ORD rather than SS2 or SS4 type submittals. But I do expect most all units to be close to that. There will be certain units that it may be that we have them provide traditional SS2, SS4 type microstation files for a short term and use those as kind of baseline for ORD work and pull those in. But we are trying to work everyone towards eventually getting off of SS2, SS4. And so that's the longer answer to it. It's going to vary per unit, and we're trying to really cater the work for each unit as we move forward, but really trying to do it all together as a department and see if we can all get there together, but it may be at different paces. Any other questions or thoughts you can think of?
Well, then if we don't have any more, well, I think we have a question from Dwight Fields.
Mr. Garland, you mentioned before training in-house. Since this is such a big undertaking and such a major transition, will there be some kind of external training for consultants?
And Dwight, again, excellent question. And we talk about this all the time, about how to not only best prepare our internal DOT folks with training, but how do we best assist our external partners as well. And we're talking different ideas and options around what we can develop from the DOT side, as far as any type of training, guidance, consultant, or as far as guidelines, it may be just written or posted on our websites. And then we also are talking with Bentley, with our Bentley Learn site, and trying to make sure that it is catered correctly, not only for our purposes, but also external purposes as well, Dwight. And that's my long answer to, we have everyone's best interest in mind, but it is such a unique, difficult time to really try to figure out training, to be completely honest. So as we get those forward, I do plan on working towards posting on the website, our External Connect website, any options we do come up with. Bentley Learn does have some really good training modules to get you out of the gate with ORD and some general ORD type training pieces that I would heavily suggest going through because that's essentially what our department is doing right now as well. And that'll get you well down the road. Thank you, Dwight.
Jeff, I can add to that as well.
Please, Roger.
Dwight, we are actively, I can speak for roadway design, we are actively trying to develop particularly ORD related training for internal purposes, but we also want to format that training in such a way that we can also share it with our partners in the private engineering industry. And I'm sure most of technical services and the other units within technical services are trying to accomplish the same thing. Mm-hmm. We do want to keep the private engineering firms in mind as we develop our internal training. We want to make that available.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Agreed. And thank you for that, Roger, for sure. And just so you know, too, like I said, our hope is as we have these become available, not only we post them, but we'll also be working with NCLUG moving forward in the future for other potential tech training or tech talks as well. So more to come, hopefully.
And we're coming up at 1 o'clock, so we probably have time for one more quick question. If anybody has anything that they'd like to ask before we call it into this session. Well, Jeff, I'd like to just say thank you to you and everybody else from DOT that was able to help out today and give the presentation. We appreciate it. I'm sure everyone that was able to join us today appreciate it as well. And if anyone does have any questions they didn't want to ask today, please feel free to send those to the email address you see on the screen, and Jeff will try to get you an answer. Jeff, is there any kind of closing remark you'd like to make before we go? I know you have a call at 1.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I'd just like to say, again, thank you to NCLUG for this opportunity to speak with everyone, and that I, again, genuinely appreciate all that you're doing for the citizens of North Carolina. And as just a humorous end note, I took this opportunity to actually wear a sports coat again for the first time in months. It felt so weird working from home and all these opportunities. I don't really have a chance to dress up anymore. So I appreciate the opportunity to wear a sports jacket today. I'll leave it at that. But in all seriousness, wishing everyone and their families the very best in the future. And as we move forward with this, we'll get this thing behind us and not in front of us, both ORD and this global pandemic. I'm tired of it.
Well, that was part of why I didn't realize your presentation wasn't up and you thought it was. I thought you were trying to show off your sports code.
No, that was a technical error. I don't know what happened there.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we'll end the Tech Talk here. We will be having future Tech Talks, so please go to NCLUG's website and make sure you're apprised of everything, and make sure you've registered for today's session if you're looking to have a PDH credit.
And Brian, our winner of the $50 gift card for today is Anthony Isley. So congratulations.
Fantastic. Congrats, Anthony.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending, and thank you for everyone who was a presenter, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.